and evil will rise.
The star of dozens of movies, cartoons, and comics, Godzilla is a pop culture phenomena beloved by the world. He was even a favorite of demented North Korean dictator Kim Jong-il, who kidnapped the film director to make his own version. But that's not the only interesting fact about the king of all monsters. It is impossible to overstate how profound an impact the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki had on the people of Japan. Within instants, whole cities were practically vaporized, with thousands succumbing to burns, radiation poisoning in the days and weeks to follow. This tragedy, along with the fate of the Lucky Dragon 5, a Japanese fishing vessel that unwittingly sailed into the American nuclear testing grounds in the South Pacific, helped to inspire the creation of Godzilla. Gojira, a Japanese portraiture of gorilla and whale, was released in 1954. The irradiated dinosaur was based on a blend of several species, including a Tyrannosaurus rex and an alligator. Its rough pebbled skin was inspired by the hideous keloid scars suffered by survivors of the atomic blast. While later Godzilla films were all in campy good fun, the original was a stark metaphor for the horrors of technology. It became a massive blockbuster with the most profitable opening day in Japanese cinematic history. In the early years of the franchise, Godzilla was meant to symbolize America and its bombing of mainland Japan, but tensions soon cooled between the two nations. Instead, Godzilla's enduring popularity among the Japanese meant that the character became a symbol of the land of the rising sun itself. Other monsters had their own meanings too. When China began exploding nuclear ordnance, they were assigned King Ghidorah. The giant pterosaur Rodan was meant to symbolize the USSR. Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 1974 was often interpreted as an allegory for the US occupation of Okinawa, with Godzilla representing Japan and his mechanical nemesis standing in for the US. Even today, tensions remain high on Okinawa, with American military personnel routinely accused of victimizing locals. There have also been allegations that the US military used Okinawa to store all manner of deadly chemicals and weapons, including Agent Orange. The latest installment in the franchise, 2014's Godzilla, features a CGI monstrosity with a design partially based on Komodo dragons and bears. But there were no computers to bring the original Godzilla to life. LG Tsuburaya, the head of the visual effects department for Toho, was tasked with creating the first version of the famous monster. Tsuburaya had sharpened his skills directing wartime propaganda films. His style was allegedly so realistic that Americans believed it was actual battle footage. Tsuburaya had originally intended to use stop-motion techniques similar to those used to create King Kong, but he was forced to resort to a rubber suit when it became clear that the stop-motion would be too expensive. The man chosen to wear the first Godzilla suit was Haru Nakajima, a martial artist. He was able to bring a marked intensity to the role. It wasn't an easy task. The suit made from melted tires weighed 100 kilograms or 220 pounds. It was difficult for Nakajima to move or see and torturously hot beneath the studio lights. After filming a scene, a cup of sweat would have to be poured out of the suit. With the exception of his colossal size, Godzilla's most recognizable feature is his horrible, unearthly roar. The producers of the original 1954 film experimented with various animal sounds to create the monster's voice, but found none to their liking. The film's composer, Akira Ifukube, eventually proposed they use a musical instrument to achieve the otherworldly tone they were looking for. Ifukube's suggestion was a success, and the roar was finally created by dragging a leather glove smeared with pine tar down the strings of a double bass. Subsequent Godzilla films have produced new versions of the roar. The sound designers of the 2014 adaptation, Eric Idle and Ethan Van Der Reen, did a great deal of experimentation to find their own perfect roar. While they refused to divulge their exact formula, they did acknowledge renting enormous speakers from the Rolling Stones to test it out on the streets of Burbank, California. Although they did their best to inform the public what they would be doing, Adele claims terrified citizens were calling the Burbank Police Department for miles around, convinced the roar was real. Some reboots such as Christopher Nolan's Batman franchise rank as even better than the originals, but few films have been as widely reviled as 1998's Godzilla, starring Matthew Broderick. Despite a solid box office return, the movie was despised by critics and fans alike. Roger Ebert's review called it a cold-hearted mechanistic vision, so starved for emotion or wit. Other critics were even less kind. In a bizarre turn, one of the songs used in the film, Rage Against the Machines, No Shelter, actually attacks the movie with the line, Godzilla, pure motherfucking filler, get your eyes off the real killer. One of the biggest complaints was a complete redesign of the title character. This version was a giant mutated iguana completely absent of whatever charm the original Godzilla possessed. Tahoe would later refer to this version of the monster as Zilla. Although, spoiler alert, the creature is killed at the end of the movie, Tahoe resurrected Zilla for the film Godzilla Final Wars. In Tahoe's version, Zilla takes on the original Godzilla, destroying the iconic Sydney Opera House in the process, but is quickly defeated. Despite the character's horrific origins, Godzilla has been the subject of several different animated series, including one in the late 1970s produced by Toho and Hanna-Barbera. The show, which followed a group of research scientists, featured a friendly Godzilla who frequently came to the rescue of his human friends. It was also notable for the inclusion of the character Godzuki, Godzilla's little nephew, most probably a homage to Scrappy-Doo. Another surprisingly decent animated series followed the 1998 movie, and while it initially did well, it couldn't compete with the Pokemon craze and folded after 40 episodes. Certainly the most bizarre Godzilla cartoon was Marv Newland's 1969 classic Bambi Meets Godzilla. The hand-drawn black and white short, which runs under 2 minutes, is composed primarily of the opening credits. Bambi contentedly munches grass as called to the dairy cows from the Oprah William Tell plays. It ends with Godzilla's foot coming down, crushing the little deer flat. Over the course of dozens of movies, Godzilla acquired a host of different enemies, many of whom were fairly ludicrous rubber creations. Perhaps the dumbest villain comes from the movie Godzilla's Revenge, a 1969 stinker that was aimed at small children. Godzilla's Revenge features a small boy who is being bullied. All the monster scenes are actually his dreams. The villain Gabara is a dopey cat lizard creature likely based on the legend of the demonic Japanese Oni. His roar inexplicably sounds like laughter. Mothra is a recurring feature in Godzilla's films, always a force for good. She is every bit as intimidating as the insects around your porch light, only inflated on a massive scale. There have however been a handful of truly fearsome contenders, including Destroyer, who managed to fatally wound Godzilla. Of course, the most awesome foe in the stable is King Ghidorah, a three-headed monster based on the mythical Hydra. Ghidorah was so detailed and difficult to manipulate, requiring an actor inside a huge suit and a team of puppeteers to move his appendages. That special effects coordinator, LG Subaraya, severely limited his screen time during his first few appearances.